as we welcome Josie Heismans, Vice President of Construction at DMG Events, to the stage.
Very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of DMG Events, I would like to extend a very warm welcome to you all here today at Everything Architecture at BIG5 Global, the exclusive event for the design and architecture community. We are thrilled to see so many of you here today representing the future of design and architecture from across the globe. With high-level panel discussions and interactive sessions featuring keynote speakers and industry innovators, Everything Architecture brings together the design community to discuss around three key themes: biophilic urbanism, carbon neutral design, and the impact of AI on architecture. Today, architects and designers will gather to highlight the critical role they play in creating net zero buildings and sustainable urban spaces. Our speakers will also discuss the significance of adapting to a changing world, using the power of AI and reintroducing nature into our cities. I also would like to thank our networking sponsor, Aluminium Duffel, our session sponsor, Meta Decor, and our supporting partners, AIA Middle East and the American University in Dubai, for their great support. A big thank you, of course, also to all the speakers here today who are going to share their vital insights, especially those who have traveled from afar. Without further ado, I'm delighted to welcome on stage your chair, Andy Shaw, and I wish you all a productive and enjoyable afternoon. Thank you. Welcome.
Hello everybody, hope you can hear me okay. Hi. So I'm Andy Shaw, I'm an architect. I'm the managing partner of AMA, we're architects based here. I've been in Dubai myself for 14 years now. I'm also the chair of the RIBA Gulf chapter for the last few years. I've hosted many events online at the start of that. Now I'm doing more in person. I get to meet people I've only seen online many times, like Muyiwa in person, which is great. And I think that's the great thing about events like this. This is, I think, the only really architecture-focused event in the Dubai calendar, and as well as coming here to see things and learn, I think it's a great chance to meet new people, not just your friends I'm sure you have here as well, but I hope you can take this chance to meet some new people in our industry and help build our community. Because I think everyone here, the architects, we know we can make the world a better place with design and with good architecture. We know that this country and this region, there is the will to do that and the ability to do so, and it takes all our knowledge and experience and working together to do it. I'd like to thank Josie for welcoming and starting the event. I'll give a bit of housekeeping, and then I'm basically, as your host and chair for the day, I'll speak between each speaker and panel talk. We have various keynotes and panel discussions on the themes of net zero and technology, AI, and making a better architecture world for all. So, first of all, make sure mobiles are on silent, and so don't disrupt anybody. There are ladies' prayer rooms on level 2, opposite hall 7, on the main entrance of Zabil Sheikh Said Hall. Men's prayer rooms on level 2, opposite exhibition hall 5. This place is so big, I don't find anything myself. I just ask people that look like they know. Because this also is strange. I hope you get to see the BIG5 trade show, it's huge. There's lots of things to see, inside, outside, but yeah, I always have to ask people where to find it. It's very, very big here. There is a networking program after this where drinks will be served, so please stay for that as well if you can. We want today to be interactive, so there is a code on the screen. I think it's not up yet. There's this called Slido, and if you point your phone at it or take a picture and then scan it from that, that will take you to a web page where there'll be some questions and topics, and you can type in or answer some polls. There'll also be questions at the end of all the talks and panels. So just 2 or 3 each, but please keep any questions brief, to the point, and on the topic, and I'll help gather them and put them to the speakers we have on stage. And also please share this on social media, at Everything Architecture, and use that as a hashtag as well. And I hope you all enjoy today, and next year when this will happen again, I'm sure. And yes, and also please, there's so much going on in Dubai. Obviously, COP is open to the public in the green zone. There's still things up from Design Week and Design District, like an exhibition we've made with the RIBA Gulf chapter, and obviously this trade show. So, getting into our program, it is a great pleasure to introduce our special keynote speaker, Muyiwa Oki. He is the president of the RIBA. If you do not know how to become president of the RIBA, he is voted by the members from across the world, about 50,000. And he is the youngest president in the history of the RIBA, which is getting close to 200 years these days. And through that process, a very positive platform of change our industry, especially in the younger generations, looking for better ways of building and practice with technology to really address the issues of climate change, retrofit, building stronger communities. We've also had elections for our Gulf chapter recently. All 3 ladies that stand for it won their election. We have our youngest Saudi lady joining our committee. So it's an important part of the process to see that these changes can happen, and that so many people want to see our industry really being as best as it can and making buildings, cities as best as we can. Okay, so welcome very much to the stage, Mr. Muyiwa Oki.
Thank you, Andy, so much for that lovely, wonderful introduction. Like Andy said, my name is Muyiwa Oki. I'm the president of the RIBA. We are a membership organization, a professional institute representing over 50,000 members in the UK and across the globe. A little bit of history about the RIBA. We founded in 1834, and our mission has continued and remains to advance discipline and practice of architecture. And that's why I'm here today, to talk about what architecture and how architecture can influence your lives and change and address the critical issues of our time. I believe architecture plays a big role in meeting the challenges that we face today, the challenges of climate emergency, inclusion, well-being, and raising the standard of living for everyone. But as architects, we need to step up our game. I believe we have the potential to go further and faster than we currently are in delivering solutions the world urgently needs. I believe, as an architect and president of the RIBA, that architecture matters. And it matters today as much as it did in the past. And if we look throughout history of buildings, of architecture, the type of buildings that we created often reflected the values and ideals of the particular time, because they provided a visual representation of the eras in which they were created and built, and they had they shared a core ideals of the particular civilization. As you can see there, that's a picture of ancient Greek piece of architecture. And what we see in this is the ideals of order, of harmony. And this piece of architecture, which is dedicated to the Greek goddess of Athena, represented rationality, who represented wisdom, who represented harmony. And this building feels dignified, yet approachable. It is rigorous, it's balanced, it's logical and serene. And what it does is show a testament to Greek ideas and devotion to a key edifice that was important to them, the Greek god of Athena. Because to them, the importance of spirituality was something that they wanted to encapsulate in a built form, to make sure that it reminds them about what is important to them. Because just saying it to one another was not good enough, and is not good enough. Again, architecture of the Renaissance period reflects an emphasis on humanist values of individualism and personal expression. Its example of the iconic dome of the Florence Cathedral is recognizing the marvel of engineering and design. Constructed from over 4 million bricks, this octagonal dome is set to exemplify this new era, or the new era at that time, of humanist values, symbolizing humans' understanding of science and merging that with art. And the architecture, in summary, the architecture of these times helped people understand who they were and what they stood for. And architecture is true of today as it was in these historic buildings. So what does today's architecture say about us? What do we stand for? What matters to us? We live in the modern era, modernity, as some people might call it. And we have moved from rural societies, by and large, to more urban and industrialized ones, which has brought incredible number of benefits. Benefits such as mass production, globalization, technology, and by technology I mean a better way of organizing ourselves and doing things. We have, in some parts, eliminated scarcity, poverty for millions and millions of people all around the globe. Lovely food and clothes are no longer just the preserve of the very rich. We have access to healthcare and education, Uber and Netflix. But along with these benefits of the modern era, there is a particular area of our lives that the promise of modernity, the promise of growth and improvement has not been properly delivered, or delivered at a scale that affects most of us. And that is in our architecture. And our architecture, in some ways, have perpetuated some level of inequality, which has led to environmental destruction, pollution, and climate change. Many people in today's society feel alienated, isolated by the pace of life, and a breakdown in social bonds. And many places, neighborhoods, do not contribute to creating an inclusive cultural environment and identity. Arguably, much of architecture that we most revere today was created centuries ago. And as modern architects have pushed the boundaries with innovative designs and use of materials, and there are lots of examples here in Dubai and across the globe that I could highlight. But these advances in materials are largely just the preserve of a minority of people, privileged people. Cities around the world are largely carbon copies of one another. with little variation and character. So I ask the question, what does our architecture say about us? And I put some of these examples up just to see this is what the modern age, in terms of architecture, the modern age has brought to us. We have democratized comfort, we've democratized access to education, medicines, way we produce things. But we have failed to mass produce high quality architecture and neighborhoods. And the result of this, of modernity and modern construction, has accounted for around 40% of global energy-related carbon emissions from our industry. And while the pace of development is somewhat slower in the global north, countries in the global south are having to contend with the major social and environmental challenges that come with rapid urbanization and urban sprawl. And in most cases, some of this effects of the loss of neighborliness and connection with one another are felt most heavily by the vulnerable and often underlooked communities. So where do we go from here? In my role as RIBA president, I want to inspire my fellow architects to be conscious of and inhabit their role as stewards of the future of civilization. And yes, it's civilization, our civilization. I believe that it's important for every architect in this room and all across the globe to believe and understand and take up that position as agents of change. We must break away from traditional patterns of working. We must go further and faster in driving innovation and delivering better buildings and neighborhoods, and avoid them to be knocked down in future generations. I believe that excellence in design is important and should remain important, but skills such as leadership, collaboration, and the ability to harness new technologies are equally important. I believe that architects need to blend creativity with ingenuity and a better way of doing things to allow us to create spaces that withstand the test of time, that positively impact all of us, and avoid the need to knock down and rebuild in a short time period. All of us operating within the built environment must change the way we work, break down silos between our disciplines, architects, engineers, consultants, communicate and share information, shift our cultural ideas of quality, of beauty, of design. We must all adapt to this challenge. And to do this, we need to have inclusive architecture at the center of everything that we do. I believe it's a necessity. I believe inclusive architecture is high quality architecture. Those are the ideals that we should embed into our modern times. We require an inclusive mindset to craft spaces and cities that are welcomed, accessible, and safe for everybody, and spaces that contribute to both human well-being as well as the health of the planet. The places and spaces we inhabit impact everything that we do, from our education and performance, daily performance, our personal prosperity, the length of lives that we live, the amount of care that we're going to need when we're in older age. For example, if we improve the air quality, we reduce instances of illness. We have scientific proof to show this. If we promote access to green spaces and nature, this contributes to improving people's mental health and well-being. And the benefits extend beyond just those who are directly impacted. Buildings and spaces and neighborhoods that support economic and social well-being generate value for all of us. And this is why at the RIBA we have introduced the inclusive design overlay to the RIBA plan of work. Published in July this year, the overlay seeks to embed inclusive design across all stages of construction and design projects. It is meant to empower teams all across the globe, from architects to clients to operators, helping these actors in the built environment to create inclusive spaces. So go to our website, architecture.com, download the inclusive design overlay for the plan of work, use it, give us feedback, tell us how it's working, because they are the foundational standards to creating spaces and places that people can enjoy and live their best lives. But climate action, like I said, must also be linked with the increasing need to increase our standard of living, and our standard of living needs to increase and have an impact on climate action. You can't have better standards of living without having a relationship with the climate. One cannot exist without the other. And with that, most experts agree that preventing the catastrophic climate change will require action in the form of an annual investment of approximately 2% of global GDP on clean energy and infrastructure. This means that the price tag of preventing the irreversible climate change is in the low single digits of annual global GDP. I want architects to be among the leading voices taking charge to advocating for investment in green technology, using our collective voices, influencing our clients to invest and engage, to pursue effective climate action one building at a time. And architects can also be at the forefront of promoting innovative and sustainable practices. RIBA and others have been working to ensure that this happens since 2019. And back then, we launched a standard called the 2030 Climate Challenge, which is an invitation to architects in the UK and further afield, also other industry collaborators, to shift towards outcome-based performance targets required to transform the built environment one building at a time. The challenge, or the standard, is a series of targets for practices to adopt. This includes measuring embodied carbon. Embodied carbon is the calculation of the amount of carbon stuff that we use to create the buildings. Potable water, that's drinkable water, alongside operational carbon and energy performance of a building. And also, in the year 2020, the following year, we revised our plan of work, encouraging architects to embed sustainable design in every stage of our project. And now, we are working with the other UK industries on a new standard to define what a net zero carbon building is. It's called the UK Net Zero Carbon Building Standards. So what I'm trying to say is we have the tools, knowledge, standards to address the climate emergency. And the challenge for all of us now is to deploy them at a speed and scale that is needed. Meeting the needs of our communities may sometimes involve creating new buildings and accepting the associated carbon impacts of these new buildings. But we should also take up the opportunity to restore and adapt, repair, and retrofit existing buildings and structures. And in doing so, we can avoid the carbon-intensive and costly demolition of buildings, like the buildings I showed earlier on in the slide. I've been heartened since I've been president to see those working in the built environment increasingly recognizing the opportunities to increase the adoption of low-carbon architecture. But again, I implore everyone to go further and faster. If we reduce carbon, adopt the approaches of retrofit and adaptive reuse, we can improve people's quality of life, we can deliver better places for people to live and work, and we can strengthen community and ties because existing buildings have a social value. And retaining that social capital and value could help knit societies together, communities together. The reinvention of existing buildings can also be as exciting as building new buildings. And what we did at RIBA this year was to launch the new Reinvention Award to showcase the very idea that adaptive reuse and retrofit is of value, encouraging more architects to pour their passion and creative endeavors into this important area. This year's shortlist, the one on the screen, features much loved landmarks that have been adapted for new uses, including the brewery that is now part of the university and a former radio station that has been transformed into a school. Reinvention and retrofit schemes are not only achievable, but can significantly reduce embodied carbon by extending a building's lifespan. So get this, with a 20% reduction in demand of new buildings by using existing structures better, we could save up to 12% of global emissions in the sector. So what are we waiting for? Let's do more retrofit. As well as working to mitigate our environmental impact, we must act now to adapt and avoid the realities of the warmer planet that we have right in front of us. We must ensure that our built environment are as resilient as possible. We must embed nature-based solutions and try to learn a little bit from our past, using sustainable urban drainage, green cover, native landscaping, to manage the challenges that we are facing currently, such as flooding, overheating, coastal erosion, and such like. Because all of this will help create a local community and local ecologies and help them flourish. So in conclusion, I believe that architecture can be more than it is today. I believe that architects need to be brave and confident in the marketplace to imagine a different future. Like I said, we are the stewards of future of civilization. We need to imagine a better world and harness collective expertise in the built environment. We need to use our creativity, our passion, to build an environment that benefits all of us. If we have to succeed in this, we need the best, we need the brightest to come and join us. But we also need to attract diverse talent of young people from across the globe and tell them and show them that they can make a meaningful difference to the world through a career as an architect. The time to act is now. We have no choice but to reimagine what our architecture says about us. And I'm confident, as our ancestors did, we can create an environment that encapsulates the values that we all aspire to. The values of inclusion, the values of accessibility. And I implore you all, if there's one message to take from today's talk, is that architecture has the ability to change all our lives. Thank you.
Okay, we do have a few minutes for questions before moving on. And let's see, you can raise your hand if you want to ask a question to Muyiwa. I think, do we have a microphone? Is it switch on it? There's one here. Thanks. Muyiwa is going to be going to COP tomorrow, I understand,
Yes.
yeah? Interesting case study there, because that was built for Expo, obviously, and it's in the middle of a very grand retrofit project like Olympics and things go through. So you'll see there some examples of retrofit as they've been adjusting and extending and things for its future life as a kind of, I believe it's a business, commercial, tech hub there, and that's right now it's obviously a big COP event. Yeah.
Hello. Myself, my name is Samir from India, Kerala. Just I have asked two fields, then I tell you. I run a group of companies, I am the CEO. I would like to know, you are telling Mr. Mishra, the speaker, Muyiwa Oki is the president's RIBA, right?
Yes.
He has very nice presentations, also especially what give the chance to hear. You are telling previous year, 2008, after 10 years, maybe coming years, next, maybe, what is the advanced level I would like to know. He is telling the history of something. I would like to know.
Architecture.
Yeah, architecture. After 10 years,
Yeah.
just, I would like to know what is the value, because of we are the number one top of persons to do.
So your question is, where you think architecture is going to be in 10 years' time?
Yeah, after 10 years, what is like the construction is going, I would like to know that.
Okay, so where do you think the industry is going in the next 10 years, construction industry then?
Well, it'll be one that really has a good handle on its impact of its impact in a global stage. Like we talked about, we have put together these various standards on how to measure the impact of the work that we do. I know there's this quote that you can't understand what you can't measure. You can't understand what you can't measure. And these standards that we have put together, the RIBA 2030 challenge and the UK Net Zero Carbon Standard, helps architecture community in the built environment industry to measure its impact and also address that impact that it's making. So I think in the future we'll be able to really have a handle on our impact and change course accordingly. So that's where I think architecture is going.
Another question, please. There's a switch here.
It's on. Hi, my name is Caroline Kruid. I'm from Metadecor in the Netherlands. Following the question of my neighbor, what kind of skills do you think the architect needs to develop or needs to embrace more to reach the goals and the ambitions that you just described?
Like I said earlier, design skills is at the core of what architects do, and we shouldn't take away that. And that should still remain the core of what we do. The leadership skills and that sort of being able to collaborate across many different disciplines is a skill that we need to grow, encourage, and that will also have an impact on the future generations. So people coming into the profession, if they understand the leadership capacity and potential of architects to be effective leaders in delivery of buildings, cities and neighborhoods all across the globe, I think we'll have a diversity of thought, or a diversity of leadership, and bring more people into the conversation so that we can measure our impact and act accordingly.
We have a moderator talk later on AI, and what may come out of that, I suspect, is that the role becoming more about helping deliver buildings, not just seeing ourselves as designers, but the process is changing through technology. And as Muyiwa was saying, it's kind of working with others, cross disciplines, and even the community you're building for, the process of building changing, and keeping in mind that I think embodied carbon, which you mentioned in your talk, it probably doesn't come up here as much. It does obviously in the sustainability engineering communities, but in the industry generally, a bit more focused on energy and use, and the embodied energy conversation is starting to come along a bit more.
To look at the 2030 Climate Challenge, use it as well. It gives targets that designers and different projects can look forward to in terms of how they are designing the project. So it's something, again, it's another standard that that's going to keep getting updated over the next few years, but it sets a sort of a playing field for other designers to design to. I have no question over here.
Okay. Here? Okay.
Hello, thank you very much for your presentation and speech. I'm Ali Saad. I'm architect from Lebanon. It's till now, I mean, till the last 5 to 10 years, architecture and buildings are very, it reflects the client's needs and a program, whatever. We followed many in our projects many times your RIBA schedule and roadmaps. But now nowadays, when the AI is introduced to our life, there must be a change in a way or another. Is it possible to have or to read or follow a dynamic schedule or roadmap from RIBA as we did in the past? This is one thing. And there is really a worry that we feel it now in our projects and that architecture should reflect the dynamic way of seeing things. Not, once we build the brick or pour the concrete, that's it. We cannot change anymore. How can architecture with RIBA, let's say, thinking or imagining the roadmaps could reply on these needs of future of architecture.
Okay.
So if I can summarize what you're saying, I think what you're saying is like, how can architecture, design and architecture reflect using the RIBA plan of works and things like that, and marry that with the client's needs? If that's correct, I'm going to try to answer that question because it's quite a lot to unpack. I think back to what I was saying earlier, I think the reason why architecture matters, how it impacts our everyday lives, is because it's an encapsulation of what matters to us as human beings. And I think over the years we've forgotten a little bit about that. The examples I showed, the ancient Greeks and the Renaissance period had ideas, and the building was a representation of those ideas. We now need to we take a step back and understand what ideas we have as a society, modern society, and what does our building and architecture need, how does that represent or evoke the ideas that we have? And I think until we understand that, and until architects take that ownership of that conversation, we will have this spirit, we will just be, beholden to whatever the client wants. And I think whenever we have a project or commission, we need to be able to say, how would you want to live in this space as client? Does it evoke the ideas of the neighborhood that you're creating for? And I think until those questions are asked, those sort of bigger questions are asked, architecture and buildings will just be just buildings, and they'll be knocked down and rebuilt again. So I think we just need to be aware and conscious of what does our architecture say about us.
Thank you very much, Muyiwa. That's all the questions we have time for. So I'll have to move on. You can catch us separately, move on and ask the question. Before we move on to Slido, I'll just sum up. I think you can sit down. Yeah. So Muyiwa's come with RIBA and a delegation for COP. As most countries in the world have sent some kind of delegation to come to COP this week, and a lot of eyes are on Dubai, obviously. So I'm going to guess that you're from all over the world, maybe based here, working here, and probably majority work UAE and Saudi. I find it interesting that people coming, Muyiwa was talking about construction industry and housing and the ability to deliver communities for people. The UAE and KSA, from my time working here, very ambitious programs for housing, where the government is leading on the funding and provision of housing for their communities. So I hope that the UK delegation and all the countries here, we're here to learn from each other and see what's working well and what isn't, because I've seen something in the show here as well about the modular construction, off-site, robotics, and where things are going. But it's hundreds of thousands. There was a talk here 2 days ago from Russian, which is the Saudi housing government provider. Private and public is a bit borderline here always, but there are very big ambitions for delivering housing in both this country and Saudi, and each country has its own take, and I hope we can all learn from each other about the best ways to do this. Okay, so we're going to try, if you've done it already, great. That's the QR code for Slido. That gives you a link. And the question to answer on is, what reflects the role of architecture in building sustainable and inclusive cities and spaces? And this is to help frame the talking points for today and have a way to kind of communally share some thoughts. You may have to zoom in if you're sitting further away. It says 2 people, okay. So collaboration and collaborate happens within an office, across disciplines, and also the community outside even the project cycle. User-focused design. Connected communities. Again, anybody working in this region knows that a lot of the developers are making big projects. They want to build community and what are the best ways to do it. There's many there's so many now examples here to see what's been successful, what hasn't. Wherever sometimes that seems to mean keeping the car out of the equation, pushing it to the edge, as Sustainable City has done. Dubai Hills has probably done quite well. Technology, which covers a big part of our industry, it always has. And many of the talks, panel talks from today, is about technology, as AI later, is how to get net zero buildings coming up soon. Okay, I'm guessing when they go big, it means more than one person's saying it. But this is new for me. Okay, so, collaboration and technology. And yeah, you'll find in the rest of the show actually many examples. I saw yesterday a prefab steel modular system, which I think has been used for neon already for the work it has in there. And obviously which technologies can go further. Zero carbon, green spaces, AI at the top as well. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I think we'll have a few more during the day, in the summer, actually more of a pole building. Okay, I think we're going to move on to the next panel talk on net zero, which is being moderated by Samar Hussain from Genza. She can come to the stage. She's going to introduce all the panel. And as I mentioned at the start, please do take the chance today to meet new people in our industry here. I think people have come from all over the world for the show and for COP, so take the chance to meet new people and discuss our topics. Hi there. So, welcome to the stage Samar Hussain for her panel on net zero.
I made the mistake before of sitting opposite to my name, and I got laughed out for such a long time because it was another guy. So, you might want to, okay, no problem. So, welcome everyone, and thank you so much for sharing your afternoon with us. Just before I start, I want to have an understanding of how many architects we have in the room. Can I have your hand up? Awesome, awesome. Other design professionals, interior designers, urban planners, suppliers, that's amazing. So this talk is for all of you, I guess. And we really wanted to talk about something really vital in this time and age, obviously with COP28 being held in Dubai, is what is our role as architects and design professionals in the net zero journey. I have an amazing panel with me here today, and we're going to dive into the topic from different lenses. But before we start, I just wanted to give a quick highlight. I know that everyone knows by now that the built environment accounts for 40% of the global emissions, and it's a commonly used statistics, but I want to actually focus on something else and talk about us and our approach, our involvement as well within the built environment. An architect who has built or designed just three typical buildings in their lifetime would have the carbon footprint of 164 US adults. And if you know anything about global carbon footprint, you would know that US citizens have the highest level of carbon footprint in the world. In fact, the interior design profession is estimated by 2050 to account for 10% of the global emissions, responsible for, as a profession, for 10% of the global emissions. And these are really like big numbers. We today sit at a global population of 8.1 billion people. In 2050, this figure will actually rise up to 10 billion, in which 2/3 will live in cities. So you're talking about 7 billion